Hey guys, I'm JJ.
I'm Natalie.
And I'm Emily.
And welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver. Before we get started, we have got to remind folks about the Sisterhood membership.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's basically a sale every day. And the best part is it's free.
Free?
All that I say, if it's free, it's for me.
Oh, girls, pull it back together now. We're partnering with our care partners to save money for our favorite people, caregivers. So go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up. Then tell all your friends about it. They can join too.
Well, and don't worry, we do not sell your email. We hate that too. So, all right. So let us get started. Today, I am so excited to have our friend Sue Ryan with us. She has, I'm telling you, quite the confession. I mean, 40 years of good confessions. So she'll be sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly with respect to caregiving. And I think we can all relate to that. Like all of us, Sue has been a caregiver, but honestly, she is so much more. And I cannot wait for people to learn about her. Jay, why don't you tell everybody about Sue, our sister in care?
Fantastic. And I would love to. Sue is an absolute inspiration. And we met her at the Care Colloquium back in the fall. And she's a firecracker. She's also a fellow redhead. So we love her.
Yep.
She, like I said, is an inspiration. And the more I learned about Sue, even when she just stepped in before we started recording, the more inspiring she becomes. She has actually had 30 years in software sales. So she's a brainy she's been doing software sales with new businesses, everybody from new businesses to Fortune 100s in more than 700 organizations. But at the same time, she's been caregiving support for family and loved ones for, like you said, Natalie, over 40 years. She openly shares that she's felt frustrated, overwhelmed, and sometimes frightened, all the way to confident, balanced, and supported. Her current 10-year journey has been navigating Alzheimer's with her husband, Jack. And that includes going through the pandemic when they were separated for 11 months due to the care community lockdown and his diagnosis of COVID during that period. And she currently is navigating their journey with hospice care. Sue is a speaker. Most recently, she was on TEDx.
She is so cool.
I know. She is a coach. She is an educator, and she's an author of The Caregiver's Journey, 5 Steps to Navigate Your Caregiving Journey is her book. And something that I love, Sue wrote in her bio for us, she says about her husband, Jack, I look at him each day. I meet him where he's at. I assess what he has access to, and I share time with him from there. And I love that because each day with our mom, you're not exactly, I know Emily can speak to this, we're not exactly sure where she is with her Parkinson's journey, but you just have to kind of meet them, your Carrie, where they are and go from there. And so we are so excited to have you here and to learn. Hopefully you'll share some of all that insight that you have with us so we can be better caregivers as well. So tell us, your journey, like Natalie said, has been 40 years. So
I know I only
where would you like to begin?
Right? Yeah, honestly, you definitely do not look old enough to be 40 years a caregiver. So you must have started when you were 5.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 5.
5, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There we go. Yes. Yeah.
So where is, you started, of course, you said in your 20s with your grandmother. So tell us a little bit about it.
All right. And technically it was, my grandmother was not my first caregiving journey. Yeah. She was one of the ones along the way. There've been a number of them. Mm-hmm. And the first journey was actually, this will help you understand my age, before the internet.
Oh,
it was before anyone talked about someone having dementia. It was not mentioned as dementia. Mm-hmm. And doctors didn't have information you could understand. You couldn't go to the library and find information. There really weren't resources. And in our heads, when we were trying to figure out the right thing to do, logically, go figure, we would try something and sometimes it would work and maybe it would work on Monday, but then Tuesday it really didn't work. Yeah. There was more error. There was a lot of trial, but more error. And it was really, really frustrating. And then sometimes in the periods, I'll give you a quick example of one story early on. I was helping to care for my next door neighbors, and they were both in their 80s. And she got up to go to the bathroom one night and thought it was Thanksgiving morning and went in to turn the oven on to preheat the oven for the turkey, to put the turkey in. This is the middle of the night. Generationally, they did what people their generation did, which is keep their chips and bread and things in the oven.
Oh.
Yeah. So her husband woke up and to the smell of the melting, burning plastic. And so some of the experiences that we did, so, we took that and then we create baby gates and things like that. And it was, like in staying over with them and things like that to try to do it. So the early journeys with really, you're flying blind.
Yeah.
And what I respected from that, the way that we create a memory is from some experience that's so profound, it gets set in there. And it's been very valuable for me because my first memories and experiences were very fearful, very frustrating. And so that is what I learned. And I'm grateful that throughout my journey, I've been able to unlearn that, learn others. However, I completely respect and remember where other people are coming from when they don't know about the journey.
So go ahead, Natalie. Go ahead.
So you went on. So it sounds like, number one, sounds like you have a servant heart. And so you served at a young age. And so it started with your next door neighbors. I remember you telling the story about them leaving the stove on inadvertently. And I think for most people, we didn't have assisted living and the whole continuum of communities, senior living communities at that time, especially back then. I mean, I was born in 75, but I think all of our family aged in place. Like no one went to, you died where you lived. And so my grandmother did, my grandfather, everybody in my family really kind of did. And so, when
we cared for each other. I mean,
exactly.
That was what you did. You brought your loved one into the home, and they did the laundry.
That's right.
Fold clothes, whatever they had access to, and it was just part of your experience. Absolutely.
Yeah. So then, then I know, fast forward to our mom, like our mom was so resistant for many years to go into assisted living. And Emily and I went and did the first initial reviews, and we were just like, and honestly, the initial ones, we were like, sign us up, but we didn't realize how much they cost. So then we were like, when we saw the ones we could afford, we were like, I don't know about that. And so, but so go into fast forward to more into your journey.
Okay. Fast forward to several of them. I'll share kind of the journey with my dad and with my husband.
Yeah.
My dad developed a type of dementia, and we accepted that and kept him at home until the very actually technically like the last maybe 4 months of his life, and kept him at home for as long as it was safe for him. And he had remarried, so it was him and my stepmother. I call her my mother of love. And while we were caring for him, it was again trying to figure out really what to navigate and how to navigate it, and his particular type of dementia and the symptoms that he had. So he had aphasia. He had a challenge with communicating, and he had, while they call it sundowners, I actually call it tired brain syndrome. So for those of us who have not me yet, for those who have a type of dementia, their brains are having to work really, really hard. And so by mid-afternoon, their brains are just exhausted. Right. Their bodies may be okay, but their brains are exhausted. And so in the afternoons, when his brain was so exhausted, he wasn't used to that and didn't really know what to do. And so it represented itself in some pretty challenging ways for a time. And we were trying to figure out how to navigate that, because there's not, there's not a manual where you look it up on page 17 and go, well, what do you do for that? And so it was learning how, it was observing him. So I'm really big on observing people where they're at. And one of the things that I've done in my roles of caregiving from very early on, and it came from the professional side of my career in sales, you're constantly writing notes, observing things, observing people, observing notes, observing a lot of things, putting together processes and putting together teams and things like that. So it's putting things together. So I observe people where they're at. How are they at this time of day? How are they when they're wearing different clothing? How are they with different foods they're eating? How are they with different conversations? And so I really record lots and lots of things. And what these are is they're all data points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're all pieces of information that we can collect it together. And so we were gathering, like with my dad, we would be gathering information about what things triggered him to be the way that he got later in the day and other symptoms, so that while it was different, we didn't want to just drug him so he didn't have any reaction in life, that we could kind of focus on meeting him where he was at. But we had this guide that said, like, when this is what he's doing, this is what we've learned is where he's at. So it was educating us to try to support him on where he's at. And so my dad's journey was about 8 years. And for several of those years, my husband, Jack, was also diagnosed. So it was navigating both of them in different phases of their journey and different symptoms of their journey. And having learned in an experience with my dad about what I've come to coin, and we can talk about it later, of massive acceptance and radical presence, it made the journey with my dad easier, but it made it much easier to begin the process with my husband, Jack, in his diagnosis and tracking him in his diagnosis. And then when we ultimately found it was safer for him to be in a care community, to make sure we had him in the right community, and then prepared the team in the care community to know different triggers for him and help them do a better job of caring.
Right. So if you go back to the concept that you've kind of developed, because you mentioned it a little bit earlier, and it kind of hits a very strong point, and that was in the beginning, or with your father, there was that point when you didn't feel adequate, like maybe you weren't doing the right job. Or can you tell us about that? Because I think that's where the heart of Reluctant Caregiver comes from with all three of us.
Sure.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. What I would say is, until the epiphany of the experience with my dad, which was well into the journeys I had had in caregiving support, I had always felt like I wasn't doing it right. I wasn't good enough. I was letting them down. I felt frustrated so often because of this logical mind. You really want to do the best for those you love and everything, and it doesn't turn out. And so I constantly had that. And very quickly, what it was is there was an experience one night when I was sitting with my dad out on the lanai, and all of a sudden he just jumped up and said, "Walk the dog." And he was taking the lanai had two doors, one at one side that went down this sloping grassy hill, and it's Florida. It's got this Bermuda grass, which is like walking on little pieces of glass. It's terrible. And so it's rough, and it's on the dog and all that sort of stuff. Then the other one walked out onto a smooth paved sidewalk. My whole life, my dad had been teaching me. He said, "I want to teach you how to be safe in case I'm not there to help you. I want to teach you how to think in case I'm not there for you, so you'll know what to do." Well, so here's my dad. He starts going out this way, and I'm like, that's not the best way. And so I'm trying to convince my dad, based on what he's taught me all my life, Daddy, this way is safer. Let's go this way. Nope, he's resisting. Again, I'm thinking of all the things that could go wrong. Daddy, let's go this way. Nope, and he pushes past me. Not like my dad. So off we go down that way, and we were safe. And so the epiphany I had when I reflected on it later was I had been present to the fact that he had dementia, but I wasn't fully present, and I'd accepted it, but I hadn't really accepted it. So massive acceptance is accepting exactly what is. And you can use this in all areas of your life. I do now, my whole life, every area. Massive acceptance is accepting exactly what is in the moment and without judgment. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to like it. We don't have to understand it. We've all been there. But in that moment, we have to accept, okay, this is what is in this moment. And radical presence is not like just being present. So I'm present. This is what my dad's trying to do. I'm present, and he's got to do all that stuff. No. Radical presence. I am so focused. You're so focused in that moment, which is all we really have is the moment. So focused in that moment. You're not trying to have it be the way that it was. You're not fortune telling the future, but you're focusing on exactly what is. So by accepting that this is what is and focusing on it, then you can make the wisest choice when there's a challenging situation. You can also, and this is as important as anything else, Like now with my husband, and he's been in bed for over 2 years, he can't really communicate very well. He can't do hardly, of what people would say are normal things. When I get there and I greet him and he smiles, that fills my heart. I can celebrate that so much. Yeah. And so it's being present to be able to enjoy without judgment the beautiful moments, and to be able to make wise choices again without judgment in even those most challenging moments that come up. So it's just being present to exactly what is in the moment.
Mm. So you talked about, I heard you speak on one of the panels, and you talked about the steps that you took when you started getting Jack to go to a day center and then to work him in. Can you share that story as far as that progression for you?
It's such a good story, Jay.
It's a beautiful story.
What I recognized is that there would be coming a day when I was no longer the best person to be the primary caregiver for all of Jack's care. That based on he's a lot larger than I am, and when he would get into what I call the dementia moments, where it really wasn't him, he was much stronger than I was. So I knew that there would be a day. Plus, he was a very, very social person. So keeping him at home diminished his ability to have something that he enjoyed and had access to. So I took him to a variety of different day programs or different things just to kind of see what he got the most out of and what he really enjoyed. And I took him to several, and it was still while he was able to, use a phone, and he would call me crying, get me out of here. And then I finally took him to a place, and he just loved it. And I would ask him, well, honey, what did you do today? And he had no idea what he had done, but he was just filled with joy. And I knew, okay, this is the kind of place where I want him to come. This is what, it was also faith-based, and he's a Mass everyday Catholic. So I'm like, okay, this is really good. But I was again recording everything. What are the things that he liked or didn't like? What are the things that appealed to him? So as he was progressing, I could see the kinds of things I wanted to make sure I was surrounding him with, and the things that I was keeping from him, so that it would help him keep as balanced as possible for as much of the experience as possible. So I looked at it while he was eating. I looked at it. I'll give you a quick story from that. When I moved him into memory care, they were struggling to get him to get up and get shaved. He didn't really want to do the shaving thing. And I said, I've got a fix for that. I said, he went to Mass every single day from before he was born. And he also at work had budget meetings with his boss in the morning. So I'll tell him that you have to get up because you've got to go to church and have a meeting with Mr. Portman. And he never resisted shaving after that.
It's a little white lie.
So, and I was
it's the truth. So hang on, one little thing. It's not a white lie. So here's my thing. I call it, instead of a lie, I call it the truth. That is the truth for them, that helps them, that supports them.
Okay.
The truth
so it's
for
because
them.
I was taught not to lie.
Yes.
Okay.
And so for me, my whole demeanor, your physiology and everything, if you're telling a lie, for me, it just changes everything, and the energy, and they're very sensitive. If you're telling the truth, that's the most helpful for them, then it's a whole different perspective.
I'll agree with that. I love that was kind of what it took to get him to that stage, that kind of thought process of, oh, wait a minute, there is something that motivates. It's almost like a sense of motivation. Like, it's just not that I'm going to be sitting here at this assisted living or whatever that facility was, but hey, I'm going to church and I do have a meeting. That kind of brings back that portion of his life where that, and
he'd done it for so long. I mean, it was something that was in his memory, because the other thing you do is you test their memory. So he was a math guy, a numbers guy. So I would constantly do different kinds of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division to see what he still had access to test him with something that was really innate to him, that was really, really implanted there, just to kind of test where he was.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah. So as you're kind of going back, because your food or your shaving was a good example. And so I think that was good. Keep going is my answer. Keep going back with your story. So pick back up. So you had gotten him into the facility. You were thinking about going into the facility because he was going to the day program.
Yes. Okay. So, and I'm not sure if this is what you want to hear, but I'll tell this, and then you can guide me if I'm not there.
Yeah.
So I took him to the day program, and he really enjoyed it. I mean, he would be filled with joy when I would pick him up, and that was really great. When Hurricane Irma hit, we evacuated. We live in Naples, Florida. It came to literally right up our street. I knew that we wouldn't be really great if we were here. And so we evacuated and went to Atlanta where the family was, and it was horrific on him. It really showed that when you get him out of his routine, he needed to be there. And so I chose to put him into the care community where he had done the day program, and we worked all that out. So when we got back from Irma and we went to put him in that community, we're walking down the hall and people are greeting us, and he's smiling and he's greeting everybody. And as he walked through the door, he turned back to me and he goes, "See ya." And we closed the door, and he was there. What their protocol was, which I highly recommend for anybody, because I've seen people not do it and I've seen how well it works when you do it. They said, don't come back until we tell you that it's safe to come back to see him, that he's acclimated. And while I went there 3 or 4 times a week to either take things or give goodies to the care team or ask what I could be doing to help, I didn't physically see him until they called me and said, you can come back and see him now. And it was so helpful, because then when I went back and he was all acclimated, he gave me a tour. And so it was really helpful. And, knowing those things, just, it makes it so much easier to have peace of mind.
Yeah. Your whole, go ahead. We're like so excited. We're like, so in all of this, you sound like you have such a sense of peace though, Sue, which is so, I listened to you tell this story, and I know that it has been, we talk about 40 years, but with each of your steps, and I remember when you told the story, Mom goes to a day center now, and we've had her in assisted livings. And I know at some point it will be beyond our ability to care. And I remember saying, I hope that at some point, I pray that Mom she will be able to say, "See ya," and she'll be like, that's the point I reach where it will be okay. I hope that hopefully that's that peace I find. What has given you that? Where is your resolve? Where do you find that?
It's choice. Every single day I am at choice. I can choose, and this is a very powerful lesson that I had. When I was visiting the continuing care community, and there were other family members who would come in with their loved ones. Some of them would come in and they would talk about how horrible the disease was and how terrible it was. They'd come in, their energy, they'd be crying, they'd be upset. There was a woman in there and her mom. When I would see her mom, when the daughter wasn't there, and the mom would be participating in activities to the degree she could, but she would be smiling and she would just be at peace. And then her daughter would come in, and her daughter was so upset and hated the disease and said it wasn't fair and all those things. And the energy of her mom just closed down, and her mom would get more upset. Every single morning when I wake up, I have a choice. I accept, and this is where massive acceptance and radical presence come in. Would we have chosen this journey? No, but this journey is the journey that we have. And so we accept completely, this is our journey. And based on that, I get to choose my perspective. And my perspective is, I don't want to waste any time on emotions that don't serve me. I feel every single emotion. There are days when I'm angry. There are days when I'm sad. There are days when I'm frustrated. There are days when I'm frightened. There are days, but every single day I get to choose, and I choose to accept the journey for my husband, the journey for us as a couple, and the journey of this for me and for our family. Is that this is a journey that, in the acceptance of it, are the lessons for me and for him and for all of us in our lives. And if I'm judging it, if I am, labeling the diagnosis, and I've got a story about a doctor I can tell you that judged the disease tremendously and influenced people. I choose to accept this journey exactly as it is, so that I am able to stay fully present. And I admit, so for example, when I go in, so I'm with Jack probably about every other day, and I'll go in and I'll massage his hands. Well, I'm not just massaging to put lotion on. I'm checking to feel what's his muscle strength, what's his circulation like. And I'll speak lovingly to him, and I'm checking how do his eyes track. I cut his hair. He could get somebody to cut his hair. I cut his hair because I want to check his scalp. I want to be looking for things. And so I'm doing those things from a place of acceptance and observation. If I was doing it based on the fact that from the time he got COVID, one of the side effects, because they were in bed because he couldn't remember how to sit down, And I worked to get him strength to stand up, and he was afraid of sitting down. Okay, I could have fought that. I could have struggled. People said, well, you should have taken him to court. All those things. That would not have changed anything. I met him where he was at, and I said, look, what's the best that we can do with where we're at? I bought him a ceiling projector because he lays in bed. So I have the ceiling projector, the brand's Bliss lights. It's got these sparkly lights on it that move around. He's fascinated by it. And the caretaker's fascinated by it too. You know, they go in and they look. So it's meeting them where they're at. And it's a choice. It's literally a choice we have. And not everybody has this choice. But, you know, that's what I do.
I know, Emily, I'm just sitting there like my heart feels so full, like from the guidance and the wisdom that you're sharing. And I don't know that it was massive or radical, but I can tell you, I had to come to a place of acceptance of my own inadequacy or my own perceived inadequacies for caring for my husband. And even to this day, I still don't feel like I do the best that I can do for him, but I just have to give myself grace. And I love that you have a choice to wake up and say, today it's going to be a good day. And
let me ask you a quick question. What school did you go to learn how to be a caregiver? What degree did you get in caregiving before your husband was diagnosed? What passion of it was in your professional life? You know, this journey is just given to us. Like sometimes it's in an instant, or sometimes we see it's coming. And then, we just go ahead and judge ourselves on how inadequate we are because, we should be able to do this, or we should be able to. No, right. I didn't go to school for any of this. I don't know. It's a perfectly imperfect journey. And even if I had gone to school for it, I can tell you a lot of things that they say are the things that happen. Like it doesn't necessarily happen, which is why, while I respect, they talk about the phases of different diagnoses. I meet them where they're at in the day, as opposed to where they supposedly are on a continuum, because I could find something if I was looking for it, but it's a perfectly imperfect journey. You said it right. Everybody, just give yourself grace, do the best you can. And when you know it's either not something that you are really wired to do, get somebody else to help you with it, and don't judge yourself. We're not, we're not all meant to do things. We're wired differently. We have different personalities. We have different passions. We have different things that we're naturally good at. I mean, I am never going to win a track meet, so it would be really foolish for me to be running track. I could run, like everybody else could run faster backwards than I can run forwards.
Oh, so I respect that.
It's stepping in, and I accept that, and I own it, and I am not trying to. I used to have that big caregiving umbrella, and they would just keep tossing more things in, and I used to say, oh, okay, I do this. Oh, okay, I do this. No,
it's exactly that. Oh, I love this. This is so fun. You know what time it is though, Jay?
It's rapid fire time.
She doesn't have
any idea what we're going to ask her.
Love
Who's
it.
first? Who's first?
I don't know.
Emily, do you want to go first?
How about the baby? How about the C-section?
Yes. I wonder when I get to go first. That never happens, Sue. Never happened.
You get to go first.
What you got, Em?
Okay. So caregiving's hard. We all know that. It's a daily struggle for me personally. Sue, what's 2 things you wish you had known before being kind of thrusted in these positions?
Love yourself. I'm gonna clump these all into one. Love yourself. Like Natalie said, give yourself grace. Do not assume that you are meant to do everything and that you're capable of doing everything. So that's kind of that's one, like one thing, honor yourself. Self-care is self-love, not selfish. So that's one side of it. The other side of it, if there was really one number one thing, I would say, always meet them where they're at and without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you can keep track of that, the better off it is.
That's awesome. I really like that. Self-care is not selfish, it's self-love.
That's right.
And that's something I try to practice every day. Sometimes it's a struggle.
We'll get you the hard line to Sue from now on. Emily. We'll be like, call Sue. Yes. She's gonna take care of you. She's gonna give you the okay.
Because when Humpty Dumpty fell off that wall, it wasn't easy to put him back together again. And there are a lot of us who've been teetering on the edge of the wall, and some of us who've fallen. So
yes.
We can't have you fall, Emily. So hang on.
I will not fall. It'd be worse than Humpty Dumpty.
All right, who's next? Natalie?
Jay, nope. Jay, you're next.
Okay, look, this is my favorite question, Sue. I get to ask it.
it.
What is one of your guilty pleasures?
Ooh, it's a confession.
I know, it's a
My
confession.
favorite.
Does it have to be around caregiving?
No.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Dark chocolate, sea salt, caramel.
Oh, yum.
Any
Good.
particular brand that you gravitate towards?
Anything that you can buy.
Anything you buy.
You know,
Are you a
Sue-
closet eater or like, I mean, I would take a whole bag.
no. And I
Out in the
share.
open? Oh, you do?
You share?
Oh, see, I'm not,
Not
a sharer.
sharing.
I
No,
share.
not a sharer.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
suck it. I am not a sharer.
Anything that's that good should be shared.
Then I'm buying.
Thank you,
extra.
Sue. Natalie is not a sharer. No, she
No.
would never share.
So dark chocolate,
Sea
sea
salt.
salt,
Caramels.
peanut butter, dark chocolate, sea salt, peanut butter.
Mm.
And I will tell you, there's a place in
Same.
Roanoke, Virginia called Chocolate Paper. I've met the owner before, but it's called Chocolate Paper. They have the most unique gifts. They are not a sponsor. So if you want to be a sponsor, but they are my favorite place. They have the most unique chocolate. And that's where I swear by to get dark chocolate, sea salt, peanut butter, these yummy nuggets. And they have caramel because Jason loves the caramels. He
Yeah,
loves
caramel,
exactly what you've got.
I'm with Sue. I'm going with Sue. All right, Natalie, what do you got for Sue?
All right. Well, this would be the last question. You know, I feel like we've gotten words of advice. I want to go different sister question. Okay.
Right.
And I will say those chocolates are sister approved. Okay.
Yes.
But there's always one story that is like, oh my God, you can't even make this up. And sometimes you might cry if you didn't laugh about it. So what is that one story where you're telling your bestie and you're like, you're not even going to believe this that happened to me?
Okay. My husband was married before we met, and his first wife, who passed away from cancer, her name was Sue.
Convenient.
Convenient. Okay. While Jack was transitioning and still living at home, there was an evening where I was trying to get him to go to bed. He was not interested. And I thought, well, maybe I'll, like, because it was getting late and, I'm trying to keep him in his routine and all those, things. Okay. So I thought, well, I'll go to bed first. And I'll say, well, honey, I'm going to go to bed. See you in a little bit. So I go to bed. I get all ready. I get into bed. Like 15 minutes later, he walks in the room and he stands at the foot of the bed and he goes, well, who are you? And I said, I'm Sue. I'm your wife. He said, no, you're not. He said, I am not getting in bed with anyone who is not my wife. So inside, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Nailed
And then the other side of me is like, okay, well, how do I navigate this one? And so I just said, okay, well, I am so sorry. I must have made a mistake. No problem. I get up, I get out of bed. I say, well, good night, sleep well. I shut the door. I go in the living room and I just lay down on the sofa and I, was just like laying there because of course, like in a few minutes, I was going to go and put my ear to the door to make sure he wasn't tearing up the room or something. Like about, again, 10 or 15 minutes later, the door opens and he walks out and he comes over to where I am and he's looking down at me and I wasn't saying anything because I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. He goes, what are you doing out here? So I realized his dementia moment had passed. And I said, oh, I must have just fallen asleep. He said, well, don't you want to go to bed? Oh, sure, okay. So,
I love that.
I like it.
Isn't that interesting? Because I think, and I know our time's getting away, but you know what? We're so bringing you back, Sue. We're just so bringing you back because you've got more stories to tell, more confessions. I can feel it. But I just love, like, I think because of my lack of knowledge around that, I mean, our mom has Parkinson's, Jason had cancer. And so you become the subject matter expert when you have that lived experience. And so I don't know as much about dementia and Alzheimer's. And you would think, as you're progressing, it just stays kind of constant. That's what I would have believed. And it seems like there's just, it's like our mom has good days and bad days and good hours and bad hours. And
actually, you could take it down to like, let's go to minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
And so I just think that's so interesting that, 15 minutes later, and it's the same with our mom's meds. Sometimes she can't move. And then at 15 minutes later, she is running that marathon.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, she'll walk your tail right out of somewhere. And so you're like, wow, she had Jesus in her. And so, there's the Spirit and the Holy Spirit too. The Trinity was there. So I love that. So
Sue, thank you so much. I feel like Sue has filled my bucket today.
She has.
You have done. Thank you so much. And I know that all of our listeners.
My bucket. I tell you, I'm so proud of what you're doing. I'm so excited for you. And I'm actually really grateful for what you're bringing to our community, because the more voices that are out and what you're doing is you're adding layers of dimension of perspective. So a variety of different perspectives from different backgrounds and different experiences. And that's really what's helpful, because everybody learns in a different way and different people have different experiences, and to have permission to be authentic in what they're doing is great. And that's what you guys are really bringing to it. So thank you very, very much for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for listening to us today. We know super busy, and you listening to us really means the world.
Well, and I want to make sure, don't forget, you can find Sue's book, The Caregiver's Journey, 5 Steps to Navigate Your Caregiving Journey. Sue, where can they find that? Can they find that on Amazon? Hello, Amazon, you can sponsor us.
They have, and actually I'll give you a little bit of a correction, but that's okay. Ooh. So I have created a program called The Caregiver's Journey, which runs through the whole entire caregiving journey. And I have an online course I'm getting ready to launch for that takes more than 150 lessons. And I've packaged it all up for people, to sharing a lot of the things that I've learned over the years. The book that I wrote a few years ago is called Our Journey of Love, 5 Steps to Navigate Your Caregiving Journey. And you can find that on Amazon.
Okay.
And that is part of one of the phases of the caregiver's journey, which encompasses the whole journey, which I've been on so many times. It's share all of it.
Well, and you know what? Thank you for that correction, Sue,
yes.
Because I always want to make sure our listeners have the accurate for the book. And then we will absolutely be sharing on social media when you get that course ready and ready to go. So we will absolutely share that. But I also want to remind our listeners and watchers to not forget to join the Sisterhood membership. Now, Em, what's the best part of the membership again?
It's free. And you know what I say? If it's free, it's for me.
Girl, you know it. And we know resources right now are limited. And so that's really important to us, especially with interest rates and inflation. And so who doesn't want to save a couple of pennies? Because I'm going to tell you, you need it. So definitely go to our website and check that out. And so whether you're a caregiver, you have been a caregiver, or you will be a caregiver, you are never alone, and you will always be a part of the sisterhood. And so you totally have this. So we love you guys. We thank you. Don't forget, we drop new episodes every Tuesday on the Whole Care Network or wherever you get or download your favorite podcast. And of course, you can also watch our video. Yay! And this is so fun. You can see all of our facial expressions and all the fun and there's been a ton of hand hearts dropped between each other. We love our hand hearts. And so it's on YouTube and on our website. Guys, thank you so much. And we will see you next Tuesday when we confess again.
Bye.
Bye.